Hey, what's going on, y'all? It is beautiful out here tonight. Um, really, really beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So, I've been thinking about this whole guitar cost. How much should guitars cost? Are guitars too expensive? But more specifically, I've been thinking about the whole Gibson versus Fender thing. The reason is because, well, since I bought this Gibson, of course, the comments have been alight with "you overpaid, that's overpaid garbage, blah 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 blah, overpriced, whatever." Okay, whatever. But there's always this kind of thing that hangs out that Les Pauls are too much money. I don't think it's true. I think that guitars in the price range where Les Pauls are exactly what they should be priced. I'll explain why. Okay, what inspired me to think about this was motorhomes. Of course, I live in RV parks because I live in a motorhome full time. And for example, this motorhome right here, okay, when it was brand new, was about $180,000. Okay. This one over here, when it was brand new, was about $440,000. You might be thinking to yourself, why would anybody spend $440,000 when they could have this motorhome for less than half? Good question. Well, when you look at my coach, it's a gas engine, 24,000 pound GVWR. It is what it is. When you look at that other one, it's a diesel chassis. Probably 32,000 pound GVWR and a bunch more fancy stuff on it that this one doesn't have. Like I have a propane furnace. They have basically a boiler system. There's features that are different. Therefore, they cost different. Is the difference in cost worth it to everybody? No, it's not worth it to me right now. That's why I have this one. Let's go find some better light. Okay, so you might be thinking, what does this have to do with Les Pauls? Basically, a Telecaster is cheaper than a Les Paul, right? But that doesn't mean a Les Paul shouldn't be more expensive. That's a motorhome. That's a motorhome. There's reasons why that one is more expensive than this one. Guitars are no different. Let's go all the way back to the very, very beginning when electric guitars first came out. When the Tele came out, it was like the working man's guitar, and Fender knew that he wanted to make it in such a way that all the parts could be replaced and, it could be interchangeable and easy to work on, easy to maintain. Makes sense, right? Bolt-on neck, all the stuff you could swap it out and mix and match and do all kinds of fun stuff. Then Gibson said, we want a solid body guitar too. So they got with Les Paul, they designed the Les Paul, but they said, we want it to be fancier. It's got to be better than the Tele. It's got to be upscale. It's got to be more. So when the Les Paul came out in 1952, which was actually kind of terrible, the one that we all know and love didn't really start till 57, 58, but the first Les Paul came out in 1952 for $210, compared to the Fender Telecaster that was $189, I believe. So when you do inflation cost stuff, you're basically, in today's money, a Telecaster would be like $1,900 and a Les Paul would be like $2,400. Funny story, that's right about where they are now. Of course, now it's raining. I'll come over here underneath the awning. We've got a guitar that was $189 or $1,900 in today's money, and we've got a guitar that was $210 or $2,400 in today's money. Why the disparity in cost? Is it because Gibsons are overpriced? No. let's talk about construction. When you look at the body of a Les Paul versus the body of a Tele, what do we have? Body of a Tele is a plank of wood, literally a block of wood. No contours, no nothing. Jigsaw. Couple of routes. The body is simple. Simple, simple, simple. And it's actually cheap wood. Alder, ash, back then it was anyway. Plentiful. It's different now, obviously, but easy stuff. Easy guitar, right? Let's just talk about just the body. We go to a Les Paul, and we have the body itself with like a 1/2 inch, sometimes they were up to 3/4 of an inch piece of sometimes very figured maple. Sometimes it's not very figured, sometimes it is figured, but anyway, maple cap on top of there. Then they have to hand carve that. Back in the day, they would carve that, curves into it, you get that contour, and then they put a binding on it. Lots of labor difference, tons of labor difference. And if you don't think so, you've never built a guitar before. I'm just telling you, there's a lot of labor there. And you're gonna say, yeah, but it's 2021. And now they have CNC machines and they can just chuck it in a machine and it does basically everything for them and you don't have to worry about it. You may be right. But let's talk about how prices and that sort of thing get set with, for example, a CNC machine. How much does a CNC machine cost? Do you know? Well, about $180,000 to $250,000 is not out of the ballpark for one CNC machine. And all of the tooling and stuff that goes with it to make it go, you know, it's probably pretty variable depending on what you want that machine to do. But 180 to 250 is, that's what I've personally seen for some of this stuff. So right in that ballpark. Okay. So the way you figure out how much something costs, one of the factors that goes into it anyway, when you have spent $250,000 on a machine to make a guitar, is how much time is that machine going to run on that particular product? And how many times do I have to take it out and put it back in, flip it over, change bits and machining tools and reset up and reprogram? How many operations and how long are the operations? And then divide that by how many of those I can do in a day, and then divide that by the cycle life of the tools and the bits and the time and everything, and say, okay, well, if it's $250,000, then effectively this time in this machine is costing me X amount of dollars per guitar. Okay, that's the oversimplified way of looking at it, but basically cycle time in a machine is a real thing when you're spending that much money for a machine. So we look at the Les Paul and we go, okay, well, they glue it all together and then they stick it in there and it does, but it takes longer because you've got the curves, you've got all the things that are in a Les Paul, right? The top is different. Then you go to Tele and it's just a block of wood with a couple of routes. Okay, time difference, impact on the cost of the equipment, big time difference. Okay, huge difference. Cost of the materials itself, a block of ash or a block of alder as opposed to a block of mahogany and a block of maple, the labor to put it together, then they have to vacuum press it together after they glue it, they have to do all the stuff, the labor that goes into that, all the operations that go into the CNC machine. Now we just have a body. The neck construction, whether you agree with it or not, I don't care, but a Les Paul neck is more complex than a Tele neck, because a Tele neck can come out of one piece of wood. A Les Paul has to have two pieces of wood. It's got a cap on the top of the peg head. Like, there's all kinds of stuff that goes into a neck of a Les Paul, binding, all that. Then we have the set neck situation where we glue the neck in versus just, you know, on a Tele. The Tele is just so much more basic of a guitar. There's just, and you're gonna say, well, yeah, but it's so much more expensive. Really, it's not. When we look at an American, let's say an American Ultra Tele, the nice American Tele, it's, what is it, $1,800, something like that. And then you've got, for $24.99, you've got a Les Paul. And you think about the disparity in labor, you think about the disparity in cost of materials, and then you think about the difference in electronics. So now we have two humbuckers versus two single coils. We have 4 knobs instead of 2. We have more expensive switches. The hardware on a Les Paul is more expensive. That Tone Pro stuff is more expensive than the stamped steel bridge that Fender uses. All these things are different. Everything is different. So we haven't talked about quality, obviously. I'm not going to talk about quality because all of the guitar builders, guitar makers out there, most of them, are constantly making strides in quality control. And I know we talked about CNC machines and that sort of stuff. The amount of work that goes into every guitar, doesn't matter what brand it is, that handwork is very, very high. You don't just put stuff into a CNC machine and it spits out a guitar. Typically, it only spends a few minutes in there. It's kind of roughed out, and there's a lot of handwork that goes into it. Where there are humans involved, there can be mistakes involved. Should they handle that in quality control? Absolutely. And I think that no good company is going to ignore that, including Gibson. Whether you want to fight about that in the comments or not, it doesn't matter. It's not about quality. It's about perceived value to the end user. Is a Gibson guitar worth it to you? Is any guitar worth it to you? Is any expensive guitar worth it to you? A McPherson acoustic is $13,500. A master-built Fender Strat by the custom shop can be like $8 grand. Cost almost doesn't matter, right? I mean, it almost doesn't matter. It's art. We are creating art with these tools. The investment that we want to put into it to be inspired by the instrument is priceless when you get the right instrument for you. And whether you are willing to spend money for that or not, that's up to you. But it doesn't make it too expensive. It doesn't make Gibsons overpriced. It doesn't make anything overpriced because honestly, somebody's willing to pay for it. And if somebody's willing to pay for it, they're not overpriced. I'll tell you right now, a little bird at Gibson told me that they want to make 650 guitars a day, and they are currently only making 450 guitars a day, and orders are backed up. They're selling more than they can even make right now. So get in the comments and tell me, if money wasn't an object, what would be your top limit that you would be willing to spend on a guitar? I'd be very interested to know that. Get it in the comments and let's chat about it. Be nice. If you're not nice, you're out. You gotta be nice. We've had some very angry folks in the comments lately, and they don't stick around long, just saying. So be nice about it. This is all about art and being inspired by your instrument and, you know, your investment in yourself. The other thing too is you're gonna have the thing for 30 years if it's good. Amortize that out. Now is it worth it to you? You know what I mean? All kinds of things to talk about in a constructive manner in the comments right now. I kind of dig it. Get in there and do it. Make sure you check out our next video. Make sure you check out our live stream. And make sure you hit the like button, because like button is the most important thing to me. I don't even care if you subscribe. I mean, I want you to. But please hit the like button if you like guitar stuff. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you next time.